Hi everybody, it's Mr. Nathan from the Literacy Lab. Today we'll be reading Chapter 2 of the Jamestown Colony Disaster by Marcia Amidon Lusted. Chapter 2, Poor Neighbors. The Jamestown settlers were a mixed group. Of the original party, 40 men were soldiers. 35 were considered gentlemen. These were rich men who did not have to work. Most of them were trained as soldiers. In English culture, gentlemen were not expected to work as laborers. The rest of the men were craftsmen, such as blacksmiths, carpenters, and bricklayers, or laborers. Laborers did jobs needing few special skills. They grew crops and helped build houses. The original goal of the settlement was to find gold and silver. It was not planned as a permanent settlement with families, so there were no women among the settlers. The company's organizers in London had told the settlers that they would send more supplies only if the settlers sent back wealth. The organizers knew that Spanish explorers had found gold in the New World. They expected the same from the Jamestown settlers. As a result, many of the Jamestown men spent their time searching for gold. This picture is labeled. Only certain men in the Jamestown group would do manual labor. The gentlemen in the group did not want to work like laborers. They felt this work was below them. The first supply ship from England wasn't due to arrive until January 1608. Still, the men spent little time planting crops or storing food. They had already received food from the American Indians as a welcome. They thought they could continue to trade for food throughout the winter. At first, the Powhatan traded food in exchange for metal and English manufactured goods. This partnership helped the Jamestown settlers survive their first winter. Still, many of the settlers were ill from diseases such as typhoid and dysentery. These diseases probably came from drinking dirty river water or water from wells. This water contained E. coli bacteria from human or animal waste. The water supply was also partly salt water, which only makes the drinker thirstier. The location of the settlement was unhealthful too. Mosquitoes in the swampy area carried the disease malaria. Powhatan and his people had helped the settlers, but in the fall and winter of 1608, the Powhatan became reluctant to trade food. There had been a drought in the area. This limited the corn supply. They needed to feed themselves. Captain John Smith tried to negotiate with Chief Powhatan. Smith had come to Jamestown with the other settlers. On the way there, he was accused of mutiny and imprisoned. But when the settlers arrived in Jamestown, they discovered that Smith had been named as one of the members of the ruling council. Eventually, he became president of the settlement. Here we see two pictures. One is of the settlers who were originally searching for gold in the New World. It shows some of the gold they were looking for. Here's a mosquito. Disease-spreading mosquitoes were common in the swampy area of Jamestown. Let's keep reading. His strong leadership helped it survive. But he had worked as a soldier before coming to Jamestown. Some of the gentlemen did not like him. Still, Smith was good at negotiating for food. Powhatan agreed to trade cord for an English house and other gifts from the settlers. But when Smith provided the gifts, Powhatan was not satisfied. Powhatan felt that the English were roaming beyond their territory. They were demanding that Powhatan's people give them food and work without pay. Powhatan told Smith that he had little corn to trade. He would trade 1 bushel of corn for every English sword that the settlers gave him. Smith did not agree to these terms. After nearly being killed, first by Powhatan and then by another chief, Smith and his men stole some corn and escaped. They returned to the Jamestown fort. The settlers were now at war. The Virginia Company had ordered Smith to develop good relations with the American Indians. Now Smith felt it was impossible. He believed the Powhatan could not be trusted. Also, the English and the American Indians had very different ideas of land ownership and government. This picture of John Smith is labeled. John Smith traveled through Europe, Russia, and North Africa before coming to the New World. This image of Powhatan is labeled. One settler described Chief Powhatan as a goodly old man, not yet shrinking with age. Smith decided that the only way to make sure Jamestown had food was to take it by force. The English raided American Indian villages. Sometimes they burned crops that they could not take. They destroyed villages. They hurt or killed the people living there. Powhatan said that the English had invaded his country. To fight back, his warriors began attacking settlers. They also killed livestock and burned crops in the fields. Smith made changes to keep the colony alive. He created a new rule: no work, no food. Even the gentlemen of Jamestown had to work like the regular laborers. This made Smith even more unpopular with these men. In September 1608, a second supply ship arrived from England. It carried food, but also more people to feed. The settlers made it through a few winter months, but by late winter, much of their supply of corn was rotten or had been eaten by rats. The Jamestown settlers could no longer trade for food. How would they survive? This image is labeled, "The settlers faced attacks from the Powhatan." That's the end of Chapter 2. Join me next week when we'll read Chapter 3, A Series of Disasters. Thanks for reading.